Can GMOs prevent world hunger? In a book called Genetic Engineering, Russ Hodge writes that ecologists and farmers across the world have become concerned that native and natural plants will one day be replaced by artificial species created by science. Others see these new crops as a hope, possibly the only hope for a world whose population is expanding much faster than it can be fed. Hodge, 2009. Since I'm in school for culinary arts, I've done some research on GMOs, and I've had to come to the realization that GMOs have been here for a long time and most likely not going anywhere. Almost everything we eat has been genetically altered in some way. We often hear the words genetically modified organisms or GMOs, but do you really know what they are? According to the National Human Genome Research Institute, genetically modified organisms are genetically engineered by directly manipulating one or more of an organism's genes. According to the World Health Organization, genetically modified foods are derived from organisms whose genetic material, or DNA, has been modified in a way that does not occur naturally. This is done through the introduction of genes from different organisms. Hodge also writes that since scientists have learned to manipulate the genes of plants and animals, they change existing organisms and create new ones. An example of this can be seen here on this picture. Pass the picture around. Hodge writes that thousands of years of breeding produced the modern corn that we know today from the ancient wild plant tanzanite. Hodge continues to write that farmers select the varieties of single ancient plants for different reasons and develop them into plants that look quite different than they do today. Here's another example of cabbage, broccoli, kohlrabi, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. They are all descendants of one common ancestor. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of GMOs? One advantage is to produce plants with higher crop yields. Paul McDivitt with the Genetic Literacy Program writes that an analysis of over 6,000 peer-reviewed studies covering 21 years of data found that genetically engineered corn increased yields up to 25% and dramatically decreased dangerous food contaminants. He also writes that genetically engineered corn varieties increased crop yields from 5.6% to 24.5% relative to their non-genetic engineered equivalents. Other advantages are immunity to plant disease, a reduced need for pesticides, which would decrease greenhouse emissions, as GMOs require less plowing, which will decrease the use of fossil fuel. Another advantage is the ability to manipulate the foods to increase desirable components such as vitamins and nutrients. R. Van Aker, M. Rahman, and C. Zahar write about these advantages in an article done for the Oxford Research Environmental Program. These are just some of the benefits of GMOs, but there are disadvantages. In a video done by the Cornell University Alliance for Science program, it says that one of the disadvantages is an unintentional spreading of engineered DNA. This means that genetically engineered crops can mix with traditional crops and introduce new and unwanted characteristics. Larissa Giordano from the Yale Teachers Institute writes that in an article that another concern is that GMOs may inadvertently generate new allergens or toxins that can affect human health. The article also states that expressing allergens in foods can be very dangerous and challenging. It is also very difficult to predict whether or not a protein in a novel organism will cause allergies. Genetically engineered crops have been criticized for promoting the development of pesticide-resistant pests. In a book called Genetic Engineering, S. Henberg writes that the repeated use of a single pesticide over time leads to the development of resistant populations of that target species. Whether we like it or not, we are already relying on GMOs, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear and the medicine that we take. According to the Food and Drug Administration, the genetically engineered fish called Aqua Advantage is a genetically engineered salmon that grows to full size in 18 months rather than 3 years. It has become the first genetically engineered animal to be approved for human consumption. The Council for Biotechnology Information did an article stating that 75% of all cotton produced worldwide in 2015 was genetically modified. And in the United States, 93% of all cotton currently grown is genetically engineered cotton. In the International Journal of Childbirth, Abby Goldbust writes how GMOs are used in the production of pharmaceutical drugs such as the hepatitis B vaccine, as well as in gene therapy. She also writes that genetically modified materials is used to make protein insulin to treat diabetes, and in human growth hormones, they're used to treat dwarfism. I used to be totally against GMOs until I did the research and saw the many great benefits. Abby Goldblass also writes that breakthroughs have come so quickly that people find them strange and frightening. I was one of those people, but as I've learned, GMOs are not all bad. I am unsure if they can prevent world hunger, but if used appropriately, they can relieve much human suffering, whether it be due to malnutrition or disease. There are safety issues, so research and regulations are paramount. A. Goldblass, 2014. Now you know exactly what GMOs are. They were introduced into our food system in the 1980s, and according to the FDA, they are safe to eat. The FDA enforces food safety laws, and they prohibit the use of unsafe foods. Genetically engineered must meet the same legal requirements that apply to all foods.